One of the biggest highlights in any Pokemon adventure is being able to learn new, better moves. That feeling when you're finally able to teach Surf to all of your Pokemon or Flamethrower to a fire type instead of terrible Ember, it's great. But what if you played Pokemon without ever being able to learn new moves? The 4 moves you get are the only moves you can use. Well, today, I decided to see how hard it would be to play Pokemon, but I can't learn new moves. The rules are pretty obvious. I can't learn any new moves. Whatever moves a Pokemon has when I obtain it are the only ones I can use. The only exception to this is if the Pokemon doesn't already have 4 moves. In that case, it can use every move it learns until it has all 4, but after that, nothing else. Oh yeah, and I can't teach them TMs. Okay, I've talked enough. Let's do this. I decided on picking Bulbasaur as my starter for 2 reasons. The first is obviously for the type advantage against Brock, and the second is that Bulbasaur learns Leech Seed at level 7, which should help it be a good support member for the early game. As soon as I get Pokeballs, I go to the route west of Viridian to catch a Rattata. It gets Hyper Fang as its 4th move at level 13, which is an 80 base power normal type move. With Stab, this is basically a 120 base power move. Once it evolves, it should be able to deal big damage. Alright, let's take on Brock. Well, I don't think I need to explain how Brock went. I mean, if you chose Bulbasaur or Squirtle, it's basically just 2 moves, and you win. They really must have hated Charmander or something. The trainers on Route 3 are all really easy and provide great EXP for my 2 team members. Obviously, Ivysaur will be carrying me through the Misty fight since it resists and is super effective, so I don't see how I can lose there. There's nothing on Route 3, 4, or Mount Moon that has any useful moves, so let's just head on to Rival 2. Well, actually, I had a bit of a change of heart and decided to catch a Geodude in Mount Moon after remembering that he has a Pidgeotto and Charmander, so I'll definitely need it for that fight. I'm probably gonna box it right after though, since it only gets Tackle, Defense Curl, Mud Sport, and Rock Throw. Too bad Magnitude is literally the next move. Well, he ended up not really being a big help. I deal good damage to Pidgeotto, but I missed the second turn so it gets into Sand Attack before going down. Second is Charmander, but I was missing a lot while it spammed Metal Claw, so I only hit with Rock Throw once before fainting. After that, I just let Rattata finish the rest of his team. Man, this thing is gonna be crazy good for a while, especially once it evolves. Alright, as crazy as it sounds, I almost lost to Misty. I know. Ivysaur just barely doesn't one-shot Staryu, but that means she wastes a Super Potion. She confuses me on the next turn though, and of course I hit myself twice in a row before finally finishing it. Second is Starmie, but she just takes me out with Swift, so I switched to Eradicate, and Hyper Fang is doing a little less than half, but her Water Pulses are not doing half, so with just 5 HP remaining, I use Quick Attack to win. I did not think it would be that close. And right after that is normally where I'd get the TM for Dig, but of course since this is a no new moves challenge, every single TM is completely worthless. Man, this hurts. After fighting all of the S's and trainers, it's time for Rival 3, and he was a total sweep. You know, I knew that Hyper Fang is strong during the early game, but I seriously didn't expect Eradicate to completely wipe the floor with it. I mean, I'm gonna have to box him eventually, but he's been really carrying the team. Anyway, for Surge, I caught a Diglett and traded up to level 26 so it would evolve. I caught a level 16 one though, so it only has Magnitude, and it's a random power move, as you can see. Thankfully, I do get decent luck and one-shot most of his team. You know, I think this is the least amount of Pokemon I've caught during a challenge so far. Right after that, I backtrack to catch a Pikachu, and then I buy an Abra from the game corner. You're probably wondering why I'm doing this. Well, there's a reason. I'm gonna need Raichu for something much later on, but firstly though, I'll need to grind Abra up to level 29. I know this sounds super random and it's gonna really suck, but it's gonna be extremely worth it, and it shouldn't be too bad with the VS Seeker. After about an hour of extremely fun Switch training, I finally got Abra to level 29, and now I'm gonna trade it for a Mr. Mime. You're probably wondering, why level 29? And well, the reason is because at level 29, Mr. Mime will have Psybeam, Magical Leaf, Reflect, and Encore, which is by far the best Psychic-type moveset I can possibly have with this rule set. Alright, with that, let's destroy Erica. Well, to absolutely nobody's surprise, Erica was pretty easy. I one-shot Victory Bell, then surprisingly also one-shot Tangela. Vileplume did manage to hang on though and used Stun Spore, and I got fully paralyzed on the first turn like I always do. Thankfully, I got a crit right after to win the battle. After that is the first Giovanni fight. He leads with Onix, so Magical Leaf one-shots it. Then he sends out Kangaskhan to my surprise, and Psybeam isn't doing much, and its Mega Punch does a lot. I use Reflect, but I go down to a crit. I send out Eradicate and finish it with 2 Hyper Fangs. Last is Rhyhorn, so I switch to Ivysaur and just one-shot it with Vine Whip. You know, if he had gone for Mega Punch at least one more time during that fight, I think this could have gone way worse. Next is Rival 4, but this battle was easy as it usually is. I decided to bring back Geodude for this fight, and even though he's embarrassingly underleveled, he actually did manage to take out Pidgeotto and Charmeleon by himself. For Execute, I just used Hyper Fang, and then Kadabra also went down to 1 Hyper Fang. Last is Gyarados, and his Thrash brought me to 8 HP, but I did take it out as well. I'm not gonna lie, I feel pretty guilty for not using many Pokemon so far, but come on, nothing here has any good moves, so it would just be a waste of time to use a bunch of useless Pokemon and then have to train them all up for like one fight. I mean, even the Snorlax doesn't really have great moves. Don't worry though, I'm gonna start getting some new members soon, so hopefully it'll get a little more interesting now. For starters, I catch and Execute. Its main purpose is really just gonna be disrupting the enemy with Leech Seed and Stun Spore, but it might also be useful as a backup Psychic type since it also has Confusion. But anyway, after grinding him up a little bit, I fight Koga, and he was a total joke, as you probably expected. I mean, I have 2 Psychic-type Pokemon, so he really couldn't do anything. I did accidentally lead with Exeggutor, which I didn't intend on doing, but it didn't really matter as he still was able to take him out. Okay, so now that we're getting later into the game, I think it's finally time to reveal my master plan. In quotes, of course. So the reason why I went back to catch a Pikachu was because on Cinnabar Island, there's a guy who will trade you an Electrode for Raichu. Now, the thing about in-game trades is that the level you get him is based on your level, meaning that you can manipulate their movesets when obtained. So that's simple, right? Just buy a Thunderstone and trade it. Well, it's unfortunately not that simple. For the moveset I want, I'm gonna need to grind Pikachu up to level 41. Yes, nearly the same level as Mr. Mime and Eradicate. Problem is, it's level 3 right now, so get your keyboard warrior fingers ready. I use the daycare. Yeah, I know, it's sort of cheating, but I really wasn't in the mood to spend a ton of hours grinding up a Pikachu 38 levels. And still, it took quite a while. Alright, after about an hour, it's time for Rival 5. He leads with Pidgeot, so I use my new Electrode to 2-shot it with Spark. He then sends out his Gyarados, even though it's 4 times weak for some reason. Well, thanks for the easy KO, I guess. Third is Execute though, so I switch to Eradicate, get paralyzed, and take it out with Hyper Fang. Fourth is Alakazam, but he just uses Future Sight like he always does, and last is Charizard. Hyper Fang does about half, I go down, then I just switch to Electrode and barely take it out with Spark. Right after that is Giovanni again, and this was interesting. I one-shot Nidorino, of course, but then his Nidoqueen survives and uses Poison Sting, which conveniently poisons me. Wow, it's almost like he knew that it would poison on that exact turn. I take it out, and then for Kangaskhan, I just sack Mr. Mime, but set up Reflect and Encore, letting Eradicate safely finish it. Last is Rhyhorn, so I switch to Exeggutor and use 2 Confusions to win the fight. Anyway, to probably absolutely nobody's surprise, both Sabrina and Blaine were extremely easy. I mean, Sabrina's Pokemon all have bad physical defense, and I have Eradicate with Hyper Fang. And then for Blaine, Electrode has Rollout, so I was able to deal big damage to most of his team. However, unlike my usual challenge runs, this time I'm actually going to go to the Sevi Isles. Why? Well, there are 3 Pokemon I want. First is a Ponyta. I'm going to need to get it to level 41 to trade it for a Seal that'll know Ice Beam. Thankfully, it's already level 36, so it shouldn't be that bad. Second, I want a level 40 Fearow. Coincidentally, level 40 is the level which learns Drill Peck, which is the best flying type move. Lastly, I want a high level Geodude which will have Magnitude and Rock Blast. I have impossible evolutions fixed, so I can immediately evolve it into a Golem. This should be really good for Agatha. After all of that, we have the final Giovanni fight, and he was a one-shot sweep. The only Pokemon who could take more than 1 hit from Mr. Mime was Nidoqueen, and I ended up getting a crit on it. Wow, what a truly intense fight. His words, not mine. Before the Elite Four, we have to fight Rival 6. I lead with Dugong for the EXP and managed to freeze Pidgeot with my first Ice Beam, letting me take it out unscathed. Second is Rhyhorn, which is obviously an easy one-shot, and third is Execute, who was also a one-shot. Fourth is Alakazam though, so I use 2 takedowns instead as he sets up Calm Mind and then he one-shots me with Psychic. This could be a problem. I switch to Fearow, and instead of, taking advantage of his boosted special attack, he decides to use Future Sight. Wow, what an amazing play there. I sacrifice Fearow once Gyarados comes out and then take it out with 1 Spark. Last is Charizard, but the battle's already over. He gets paralyzed, and even with 2 scary faces, I still outspeed him. Alright, so here's the final team. I trained up Fearow and Geodude since they were extremely underleveled, as well as the rest of the team. I'm not sure how difficult the Elite Four will be, but I think I have decent enough type coverage to win. Let's do this. First is Lorelei, and this battle was really tedious. I lead with Electrode, and Spark looks like it's doing just about half to Dugong, but unfortunately I was wrong as she survives. So while she heals, I set up a light screen, then take her out with 3 sparks. Second is Cloyster, but it has bad special defense, so I one-shot it. Third is Slowbro, and while Spark would have normally 2-shot, she used Amnesia, and unfortunately the next turn she crits to take me out. I switch to Mr. Mime and take her out with 2 magical leaves. Fourth is Lapras though, and this is where the battle really became ridiculous. She takes me out after I have some bad luck with Confusion, then I use Exeggutor to paralyze it and Leech Seed it. I then switch to Dugong and have this incredibly long stall battle as she barely does any damage, but neither do I, and she has a full restore. Eventually Leech Seed takes her out, and last is Jinx. She puts me to sleep and attracts me, and this does take a while, but I eventually get the 3 takedowns I need to win. Second is Bruno, so I lead with Dugong to take quick care of his first Onix. He sends out Hitmonchan though, to my surprise, so I switch to Mr. Mime and take it out with 2 Psybeams, but not before getting pretty beat up. For Hitmonlee, I switch to Electrode as he deals big damage with Brick Break, so I just sacrifice him with Self-Destruct and also take Hitmonlee out. I switch to Exeggutor thinking that he's gonna use Machamp next, but I was wrong. It's fine though, as 2 Confusions take Onix out. Last is actually Machamp, so I seed it, paralyze it, and then whittle it down with a few Confusions. Third is Agatha, and let's just forget that I tried using a ground type attack on her Gengar. Surprisingly though, I actually managed to hit all 3 rollouts on it despite her using Double Team. Then Arbok uses Iron Tail to bring me to low health, as my 4th rollout barely doesn't one-shot it. She heals though, so I just take it out on the next turn. I sack Golem and use Electrode to take Golbat out. 4th is Gengar, so I set up Light Screen in case she tries using Dream Eater and then go down. Mr. Mime thankfully is able to finish it with Psybeam, and then finally Haunter is a one-shot. 4th is Lance. Electrode Spark leaves Gyarados with 1 HP, which is just fantastic. He gets in a Hyper Beam to take me out. However, Static activates, so I use this opportunity to let Golem set up a rollout. His first Dragonair takes 2 rollouts to feint, and then his second Dragonair goes down with 1, so now I have a 5th turn rollout for Dragonite, but he outspeeds. Great. I switch to Dugong, and his Outrage does half my health, but my Ice Beam doesn't one-shot it. Luckily, he gets confused and hits himself, so I just finish him the next turn. Last is Aerodactyl, so I sack Dugong, then let Exeggutor paralyze and seed him, and then use Mr. Mime to take him out with a few more Psybeams. And finally, we have the champion. I lead with Golem and do good damage to Pidgeot with Rock Blast, but he switches to Rhydon. I use Magnitude to deal big damage as he takes me out, then while he heals the next turn, I use Mr. Mime's Magical Leaf to one-shot it. For Gyarados, I set up Reflect in case he uses Thrash, but he uses Dragon Rage, which is great. I use Encore to force him to keep using it, then send out Electrode to 2-shot him with Spark. He sends out Pidgeot again, but he's already hurt, so Spark just finishes him. 4th is Alakazam though, but none of my other team members can outspeed him besides Electrode. I set up a light screen, but seeing that I'm getting low, I realize that I have no choice but to self-destruct. It takes him out, and 5th is Charizard, so switching to Exeggutor was the right call. I paralyze and Leech Seed him, then send out Dugong, who will resist his fire attacks due to Thick Fat. Ice Beam plus Leech Seed looks like it's about a 3-shot, but he uses 2 full restores, so this does end up taking a while. And last is Exeggutor, but I luck out and get a crit Ice Beam to one-shot him. And there we go. That was Pokemon FireRed without being able to learn any new moves. That was definitely an interesting run. I feel like the amount of good Pokemon that I could use were really limited. I mean, like, I had 3 team members for the first half of the game. Type coverage was super scarce here, but looks like there was just enough diversity to help me win. Anyway, if you enjoyed, consider subscribing. I love doing these weird challenge runs, and it really helps me out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.